Hello and welcome to yet another interesting time in Information Technology class. My name is Blaze Ella Gogo, and in today's lesson, we will be looking at the topic ICT gadgets under the theme Basic Knowledge of Information Technology. In this lesson, we will be looking at three specific ICT gadgets, and this shows how much development have occurred in telecommunications. By the end of this lesson, you should be able to do a few things. First, you should be able to differentiate between a GSM phone, a telephone, and a fax machine. And then you should be able to create and send messages to one another using GSM phones and fax machines. I'm sure you will agree with me that we all need information. And because of this, we all end up creating and sharing information, and this is the process of communication. The last time you communicated with your friend, how did you do it? Was it a phone call? Was it text message? So you see, information can be in different forms. They could be in the form of graphics, which are pictures and text. They could be in the form of audio, which refers to sound. They could also be in the form of video. We are able to communicate with one another and share information using different gadgets or technologies. A general name used to describe these technologies is ICT. And ICT stands for Information and Communication Technologies. And so with ICTs, we are able to create, process, store, retrieve, communicate, and manage information, and we're able to carry out these different processes using ICT gadgets. I'm sure with the description of ICT, you're able to imagine what these gadgets are. We have so many of them, but here are some examples. We have GSM phone, the telephone, we have the computer, the television, the radio, fax machine, ATM, POS machine, game console, and so on. However, in this lesson, we will focus on three specific ICT gadgets, and these are the GSM phone, the telephone, and the fax machine. And so, we will be looking at what they are, their differences, and how to operate them. Let's proceed. Starting with the GSM. The GSM stands for Global System for Mobile Communications. GSM is a standard used for mobile technologies such as our mobile phones. And so mobile phones work with what is called a SIM card, and the SIM stands for Subscriber Identity Module. The SIM is a microchip that contains subscriber information and network information. It also has a memory where certain information are stored. GSM phones and other mobile devices are used to send and receive information in the form of text, video, picture, and voice messages. In making voice calls, you make use of the dial pad. And then for sending text messages, two things are important: the recipient and the content of the message. And then for sending multimedia files, you need to locate the file and then share. Now let's see how each of these work. To make voice calls, simply look for the phone app. Use the keypad to dial the desired phone number and press call. Because this phone uses two SIM cards, there are two options to call with. That's how to make a simple call. To send text message, simply look for the text message app. Two important details must be filled. The first is the phone number of the recipient. Multiple recipients can be added. And the other is the content of the text message. When files like images are added, it is converted to a multimedia message. And once you've confirmed the recipient and the content of the message, simply click on Send. And then for sending video, image, and audio files, simply locate the file. Select the file. You can do this by pressing and holding on the file until it is marked with a small tick. Next, click on the Share button, which can be spelled out as share or by this icon. And so because you and your friends are on so many different platforms, clicking on the Share button brings up all the installed platforms. Simply click on the desired one and the user you intend to send the file to. And that's how it's done. Thank you. And with this, we'll be looking at the next ICT gadget, which is the telephone. Unlike mobile phones, which are portable and can be moved about, a telephone is a fixed line. That is why it's called a fixed line or a landline. A telephone converts the human voice to electrical signals. It then sends these signals to the other telephone user on the other end. Note, mobile phones, that's the GSM phones, convert the human voice to radio waves. Telephones are used to communicate audio messages and text messages. It means they can be used for voice calls. They can also be used to send text messages. Now, let's look at the next ICT gadget, which is the fax machine. A fax machine is used to send a fax, and a fax is a facsimile, meaning an exact copy of a document. And this document could be in the form of pictures or text. Now, a fax is made up of three components. There is a scanner, a printer, and a telephone. The scanner is used for scanning the document. The printer is used for printing the document, while the telephone is used for internet connection. Here are the steps to follow in order to send a fax. On the part of the sender, you turn on your fax machine, and that fax machine must be configured to send fax. Of course, there will be internet connection as well. Next, place the document in the feeder, after which the fax number should be entered. Once all of these are done, you simply wait for the document to scan. Once it's done scanning, on the part of the receiver, the fax machine should be on, and then the printer simply prints out the document that was sent by the sender. Easy, right? And here's the sound the fax machine makes while working. Weird, right? Now, let's proceed by looking at the differences between a GSM phone, a telephone, and a fax machine. With what we've done so far, we know that these three ICT gadgets are used to communicate. So obviously they are different in their shapes, in their sizes, and how they transfer information. There are lots of other differences, but for the sake of this lesson, we will focus on the type of message they can transfer, the format of the message they can transfer. For the GSM phone, we can send and receive messages in audio, picture, text, and video formats. Whereas for the telephone, we can only send messages in audio and text formats. And then for the fax machine, we can send messages in just text and picture formats only. And so with these, you can see that with a GSM phone, we can do much more than these other two ICT gadgets. With this, I'm sure you agree with me that lots of developments have occurred in telecommunications. Before we leave, let's have a quick summary. First, we learned that information and communication technology describes technologies that are used to create, process, store, retrieve, communicate and manage information. Secondly, we learned that we communicate with one another using ICT gadgets. Some ICT gadgets are GSM phones, telephones, and fax machines. Thirdly, we learned that GSM phones can be used to send and receive information in audio, video, text, and picture formats. Fourthly, we learned that the telephone can be used to send and receive information in audio and text formats only. And finally, we learned that the fax machine can be used to send and receive information in text and picture formats only. Before we leave, let's try out some exercises. Question 1. Which of the following ICT gadgets requires a SIM card? A. Scanner. B. GSM phone. C. Fax machine. D. Printer. And the correct answer is B. The GSM phone requires a SIM card. Let's try out one more. Question 2. Which of the following is used for sending documents only? A. GSM phone. B. Telephone. C. Fax machine. D. Scanner. And the correct answer is C. Fax machine. I'm sure you're excited about how these three different ICT gadgets work. Till we meet in our next lesson. Bye-bye.